The Texas sun, a merciless orb, was beginning its slow descent, painting the western sky in hues of fiery orange and deep crimson. Its final, scorching rays beat down on the parched earth, illuminating a scene of quiet devastation. Beneath the sparse shade of a gnarled palm tree, its trunk scarred and ancient, Saturday Alara, her dress, once a simple cotton shift, was now a blood-splattered dirt-encrusted ruin, barely clinging to her trembling form. Her hair, matted with sweat and fear, clung to her face, streaked with crimson. Her eyes, wide and hollow, stared out at a world that had, in a single, brutal afternoon, been irrevocably shattered. Cale, a lone rider, knelt before her, his face, partially obscured by the brim of his dusty cowboy hat, was a study in grim concern. A red bandana, vivid against his sun-bleached shirt, stood out as a solitary splash of color in the desaturated landscape. His horse, a sturdy bay named Blaze, stood a few yards away, its head bowed, a silent, patient witness. "They're gone, Alara," Cale said, his voice a low, steady rumble, carefully modulated to soothe, not alarm. "Rode east, hard and fast. You're safe now." But Alara didn't respond, her gaze fixed on something unseen, something beyond the horizon. Her left arm, where a deep gash bled sluggishly, was clutched to her chest. She was like a creature caught in a snare, physically freed but mentally still trapped. Cale had found her an hour earlier, stumbled upon her by sheer chance. He was a surveyor, making his way across this wild stretch of Texas, charting land for a distant railroad. He'd seen the smoke first, a dark smudge against the vast blue. Curiosity, or perhaps a premonition, had pulled him off his charted course. What he found was a nightmare, a small, isolated homestead, a beacon of human endeavor in the endless prairie, reduced to smoldering embers, and Alara, barely conscious, half buried beneath the rubble of what had been her home. Her husband and young son, gone. Cale didn't need to look for bodies. The silence, the smell of burnt flesh, told its own grim tale. He'd pulled her free, her delicate frame surprisingly resilient. He'd done what he could for her wounds, tearing strips from his own shirt, applying pressure. She hadn't spoken a word, hadn't even cried, just stared, her eyes reflecting the horrors she'd witnessed. He'd guided her here, to this solitary palm, the only shade for miles. "Alara," Cale tried again, his voice gentle. "Can you hear me?" Slowly, her eyes shifted, focusing on him for the first time. The terror was still there, a raw, primal fear. But now there was also a flicker of recognition, a desperate plea for understanding. They took everything," she whispered, her voice a dry rustle, like the palm fronds above them. "Everything." Cale didn't need her to elaborate. He knew the story. Too many times, he'd seen it. Renegades, outlaws, or even just desperate men, sweeping in, destroying lives for a few paltry possessions, for the sheer thrill of it. "I know," he said, his voice thick with compassion. He reached for his canteen, unscrewed the top, and offered it to her. "Drink, Alara, you need it." She looked at the canteen, then at his hand, as if unsure what to do. He gently guided it to her lips. She drank, a long, desperate gulp, the water a cool balm on her parched throat. A few drops trickled down her chin, washing away some of the blood and dirt. My boy," she stammered, the words suddenly tumbling out. "Finn, he was hiding. He was so brave. I told him to hide, under the floorboards. I told him not to make a sound." Her eyes widened with a fresh wave of panic. "He's still there, isn't he? He's still hiding." Cale felt a cold dread settle in his stomach. He'd seen the extent of the fire, the total destruction, the heat, the smoke. No child could have survived that. But he couldn't tell her that. Not now. Not when she was clinging to that last, fragile hope. "Alara," he began, his voice hesitant. The fire, it was bad. No one could have survived in there. Your home, it's all gone. Her eyes, which had held a sliver of hope, now filled with a crushing despair. She understood. He saw the exact moment the realization hit her, saw the light drain from her gaze, leaving behind a terrible, empty void. No, she whispered, a broken sound. No, not Finn, my Finn. He was so small. Her voice broke, a raw, animalistic cry tearing from her throat. She crumpled further against the palm, her body racked with dry sobs. The sound of her grief swallowed by the vast silence of the prairie. Cale sat, helpless. He watched her, his own heart aching. He had seen too much death, too much sorrow, in this land. He knew the brutal truth. For every dream built on the frontier, there were a dozen shattered. After a long time, the sobs subsided, leaving her utterly spent, a crumpled figure beneath the palm. She lay there, breathing shallowly, her face turned away from him, towards the west, towards the fading light. "What now?" she asked, her voice flat, devoid of emotion. "What do I do now?" "You keep going," Cale said, his voice firm, unwavering. "That's all any of us can do out here. You survive. You find a reason to keep breathing," she scoffed, a bitter sound. "Reason? My husband, my son, my home, all gone. What reason is there?" "The reason is you're still here, Ilara," he insisted, his gaze piercing. "You're still alive. And that means something. It means you have a choice, to give up, or to keep fighting." She turned her head, looking at him with eyes that held a flicker of defiance, a spark of the life that still clung to her. Fighting what? The wilderness, the outlaws, God himself. All of it, Cale said simply. You fight for your own life, for your own future, for the memory of those you lost. So their lives weren't for nothing. His words seemed to sink in, slowly, painfully. She stared at him for a long moment, then nodded, a barely perceptible movement. "All right," she whispered, her voice raw. "All right, Cale. What do we do now?" "We rest," he said, rising to his feet. "Then, at first light, we ride. There's a small settlement, 2 days' ride south. Dry Gulch. You can find a stagecoach there. Get you to San Antonio, a bigger town, a place to start over." He gathered some dry grass and palmetto fronds, building a small, hidden fire away from the palm, careful to keep the smoke minimal. He rummaged in his saddlebags, producing some jerky and hardtack. He offered them to her. She took them, her movements slow, deliberate, like an automaton. She ate, chewing mechanically, the food providing sustenance but little comfort. As the stars began to prick through the deepening twilight, Cale sat on the opposite side of the fire, his rifle across his knees. He kept watch, his senses alert. The prairie was a beautiful but dangerous place, especially at night. He knew she wouldn't sleep. Not truly. He wouldn't either. He was responsible for her now, this broken woman. He thought of his own losses, the quiet grief he carried. He understood her pain, the overwhelming weight of it. He'd seen men, strong men, break under less. But Ilara, despite her fragility, had a spark of something fierce in her, a will to survive. They rode at first light, the eastern sky a pale canvas before the sun's full assault. Ilara rode Blaze, Cale walking beside her, leading his own pack-horse. Her movements were stiff, her body aching, but her resolve was hardening. She had taken a few sips of water, a bite of jerky, and though her eyes still held the shadows of her grief, they no longer darted with uncontrolled terror. "You said Dry Gulch?" Ilara asked, her voice quiet. "Is it far?" 2 days, if we push it, Cale replied. "Depends on the heat." "What kind of town is it?" "Small, dusty. Got a saloon, a general store, a blacksmith, and a stagecoach stop. It'll get you where you need to go." "Where do I need to go?" she asked, almost to herself. Cale turned to look at her, his expression serious. Wherever you can find peace, Elara. Wherever you can build something new. You don't have to carry this forever. Not alone. She was silent again, contemplating his words. He was right. She couldn't stay here, stuck in the past, consumed by the pain. She had to move forward. For Finn, for Ben, to honor their memory. They rode through the long, hot day, the landscape unchanging, a vast expanse of scrub and dry grass under a relentless sun. Kale talked little, but pointed out landmarks, signs of animals, teaching her the subtle language of the prairie. He noticed her watching him, learning from him, absorbing every detail. She was a quick study. That night, they camped by a shallow creek, a rare oasis in the dry land. Elara, though still exhausted, helped him gather firewood, her movements more fluid now. She watched him clean his rifle, prepare their meager meal. She was beginning to shed the skin of utter helplessness. Kale, she asked, as they sat by the fire, the stars a brilliant canopy overhead. Yes, Elara. What will you do after Dry Gulch? Keep surveying, he said. Head west, into the territories. There's always land to chart. Always a new horizon. Alone. He looked at the fire, then at her. Always have been. It's the nature of my work. It's a lonely life, she observed. It is, he agreed. But it's a choice. She was silent again. Then she reached into the torn pocket of her dress. She pulled out a small, tarnished silver locket. It was old, worn smooth by countless touches. She opened it. Inside, 2 faded tintypes, a young man with a kind smile, and a small boy with bright, curious eyes. Ben, Finn. They were good men, she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. Good, kind. They deserved more. They did, Kale agreed softly. But they lived. They loved. And you carry that with you. That's not nothing you loved. And you carry that with you. That's not nothing you loved.